During Wrath of the Lich King Classic, one of the best ways to level a priest was Holy Nova Priest. This was a hybrid spec between Holy and Disc that basically allowed you to only press Power Word Shield and Holy Nova, and you would do a ton of AoE healing and a ton of AoE DPS. This would get you to a place where you were almost just another DPS in the raid while also being able to heal a ton. However, during Cataclysm and in the Cataclysm pre-patch, this has changed drastically. That's because Holy Nova is now no longer available until level 62, even though you originally got it at level 20 in Wrath of the Lich King. That one change has obviously killed the way that you played Holy Nova Priest to the point where it's not really an option anymore. But that doesn't mean healing on a priest and leveling as a priest healer is dead, because there's a new and honestly a slightly better option, especially for single target, that exists. Cata introduced a new way to play Disc Priest in the form of Atonement Priest. Instead of being an AoE god that's able to heal, you're now just as good as a Shadow Priest in single target damage, but still get to play DPS as a healer. So let's talk about talents and how this build works. For the talents, the first thing that you're going to want to select obviously is Discipline Priest. Then you're going to take Improved Power Word Shield, and you're going to take Twin Disciplines. From this point on, it doesn't really matter what you choose until you get to Atonement. 3 in Mental Agility is nice. It gives you 10% reduced cost on only your Power Word Shield, but having Power Word Shield cost less is pretty nice. And then 2 points in Evangelism is what I like to go for. We're not going to take Archangel. You can decide to take Archangel if you want to. The reason why we want Evangelism though is because it increases the amount of damage our Holy Fire and Smite does, which will then increase the amount of healing that we do through Atonement. Top of that, it reduces the cost, which is just nice for mana. And then from here we have 10 points, so we can take 2 points in Atonement. How Atonement works is whenever you Smite or Holy Fire, you will heal a nearby ally, whichever one has the lowest health, each time that you cast either Holy Fire or Smite. So say you cast a Smite, it does 1,000 damage, you're going to heal the lowest health person for 1,000 damage. Now it says here that if a priest is healed through Atonement, the effect is reduced in half. I think this is actually bugged currently and doing significantly less than half, but I think it's doing something weird on the back end. That might just be anecdotal. Maybe it's just some weird situations that I've been where it's been doing that, but there are some times that it feels like this may be bugged. But if there is a case where you are the lowest person, just toss yourself a flash shield, penance yourself, and you'll be perfectly fine. From this point on, you're going to take Soul Warding to make it so your Power Word Shield no longer has a cooldown, so you can multi-Power Word Shield people. However, I wouldn't multi-Power Word Shield people ever in a form of healing unless you know specifically that someone may die in a situation where there's like a big AoE pull and the tank's not that great. Next step is PI. Power Infusion is a very good button. You should be pressing it either on yourself or if you have a friend in the group that you know is good. Do not press Power Word Infusion on players just because of the class they're playing. There might be a mage that could do damage, but we don't know if that mage is going to do damage, or we don't even know if that mage is going to notice, oh, I got PI'd, so I should probably pop my cooldowns. Make sure that you're pressing Power Infusion on yourself. You get less mana cost, you get increased casting speed. It's going to make you do more damage, and since you know you're good, then it's just better to be pressed on you. From here, you're going to take Rapture. Rapture is how you're going to sustain mana consistently. You're still going to want to use mana pots. You're still going to want to be drinking consistently while playing Priest, but Rapture makes it a lot easier. How this works is you're going to always be putting Power Word Shield on the tank in situations where you know for sure they're going to be taking enough damage for the Power Word Shield to get broken. When the Power Word Shield is fully absorbed, you get 7% of your total mana back. Now, if you're pressing Power Word Shield on a bunch of different people and you're not getting your mana back because they aren't taking damage, then you're just wasting mana. Don't over Power Word Shield people, just make sure you're doing it on tanks consistently. If there's ever situations where you feel like, oh, I need to heal multiple people, you want to just be pressing Prayer of Healing. The amount of healing per mana for Prayer of Healing is just significantly better than trying to multi-Power Word Shield people. From this point on, it doesn't really matter what else you take, because remember, this is a guide specifically for dungeon leveling. This is not a raid healing guide. This is not even a max level dungeon healing guide for heroics. I am playing Shadow Priest at max level, so if you're looking for a guide for raid healing or even high-end dungeons, this is not the video for you. This is solely for leveling as efficiently as you can as a priest. Alright, so from here, it doesn't matter whatever you take. Reflective Shield is nice, still a bit more damage. Pain suppression's good too. Sometimes the tank will pull a ton of mobs, so having pain suppression makes it so you don't wipe. Other times you're having a hunter pet deciding to jump off the map and pull a whole room of enemies that they didn't know. Having pain suppression, super nice for that. From here you can go train of thought. You don't necessarily want to be pressing anything or pressing your penance on cooldown. How I like to use penance personally is I forget that it's a button until I have to heal someone instantly. It's a very, very good instant heal, and you can just top almost anyone with a single penance. You'll get in some situations where your amount of damage in an AoE situation, even though you're doing single target damage, if the tank is taking a lot of damage, being able to just tab over and press penance, super nice. Then from here you can just take whatever you want. Take Divine Aegis, take Focused Will if you're taking damage. It doesn't really matter what you choose. The only thing that matters is after you have 31 points in Discipline, you're gonna make sure you take Divine Fury, makes it so you have faster casts on your Holy Fires and your Smites. And then you're going to want to also take Veiled Shadows, which is going to allow you to have a reduced cooldown on your Shadow Fiend. Shadow Fiend is something that you get way later. You're going to want to press it every time you're on bosses. It basically just gives you a decent amount of mana, and it's also pretty good damage. For the glyphs, the only glyph that you really need is this glyph of Power Word Shield. It makes it so you heal the person that you Power Word Shield for 20% of the absorb amount. So you're going to have some situations where the tank is starting to run to a next pack and they aren't topped right away. Say maybe a DPS took damage right at the end of the pack, like exploding or something, and they had lower health. So then your first smite is going to be on the DPS that's lower health. So since you have this glyph, what you can do is you can pre-Power Word Shield a tank. That'll heal him for 20% of the absorb amount, which is a super nice instant heal that you get on top of the absorb from Power Word Shield. You can also decide to take the glyph of Prayer of Healing, which also gives you an additional 20% of the Prayer of Healing over 6 seconds. This is a super nice one for situations where you take a lot of AoE damage, press your Prayer of Healing, get a little bit of extra healing on top of it. And then from here on out, the only other glyph that you probably want is the glyph of Shadow Fiend. All it does is make it so on the off chance it dies, you get 5% of your maximum mana back. The last thing we're going to talk about is rotation and just generally the playstyle of this class. First things first, in AoE environments, you're going to make sure that you're always Power Word Shielding the tank, and then if it's not a big pull, you're just going to do your single target rotation on any of the mobs. Make sure you Holy Fire, and then just spam Smite, and then all of the damage that you're doing should be enough to heal the tank until your next Power Word Shield comes up. If you're in an AoE situation where the tank is overpulling, where the tank is super paper, and they pull a ton of mobs, always be ready to just press Pain Suppression. And then you should also have penance up. If you get to a situation where the tank is going super low, just press penance on them and you'll heal them to full most of the time. If you get to situations where there's a ton of spread damage, just press Prayer of Healing consistently. It'll just always get people to top or close to top, and then the glyph will make it so they heal back to full either way. That's basically how you're going to heal in AoE situations. If it's not a big AoE pack, just single target damage. If it's a ton of spread damage, just make sure you're Prayer of Healing and you'll be perfectly fine. For bosses where it's just single target damage, it's a super simple rotation. You're gonna make sure you're Power Word Shielding the tank before the boss fight starts, and then right as the boss fight starts, you're gonna Power Infusion yourself, you're gonna Holy Fire, and then you're gonna spam Smite. The amount of damage that you're doing in this situation is more than enough to keep everyone topped in a lot of boss fights. Most of them are super easy. If you again get into a situation where a lot of other people are taking damage and your damage is not enough to heal everyone else, then you can always put in a Prayer of Healing and you'll be perfectly fine. Once your mana starts to get around half, make sure that you're pressing your Shadow Fiend on bosses. Now it's going to give you a little bit of extra mana, but it's not going to give you a ton of extra mana. So there may still be situations where you have to mana pot, or may be situations where you're going to want to drink. Just make sure you're drinking smart. If the tank is running to a pack and you know the pack in front of you has like 2 mobs, Power Word Shield him, take a drink during the Power Word Shield, and they're not just going to instantly fall over. Same thing with having penance always up. If your penance is up, you can Power Word Shield them and drink, and then if they start to take a ton of damage, just penance them instantly, they'll get topped and you're good to go. You get a nice and easy drink. And that's basically how this functions. You're going to be doing a decent amount of single target damage, which allows you to basically be the 4th DPS in the group, making it so your dungeons are significantly faster, and you can still be having an active playstyle where you're not just focusing on healing in situations where sometimes it's super boring because no one's taking damage. On top of that, you still get healer queues, which makes it so leveling in dungeons is super fast. I started this channel making WoW guides. Now I've transitioned into more of a PoE content creator. So this video is just something I thought I'd put out there because I didn't really find any good resources for Cata Priest that were easily able to find on YouTube. So I'm hoping that this video can be that resource for people looking to level a priest as efficient as they can. Thanks for watching.